It's Curly, and today we're going to talk about my second year with Vanguard ZERO. I recently uploaded, or I should say re-uploaded, a video that I had on my gameplay channel where I sort of went over what it was like through my first year of playing Vanguard ZERO. And sort of the reason why I did that is that Vanguard ZERO has been kind of special to me, especially during that time, right? It is, I think a lot of people have a sort of pandemic game or series or hobby or whatever the case may be that they, really relied on during the pandemic to keep them sane. And for me, it was Vanguard ZERO. And it introduced me into a lot of different things, right? It introduced me deeper into Vanguard. It allowed me to start playing, meet a bunch of different people that I call my friends now. I had a lot of really good experiences and really sort of fun memories and growth that I went over in that video. And we're now in the second year of, not the pandemic, but of Vanguard ZERO, and things are a little bit different, I want to say. Not so much with the game itself, right? While that is true, because we're in the G era, so things have changed, that's not exactly what I'm talking about. But we'll get into that into a little bit. I think what I'll do here is sort of go over a breakdown like I did in that other video where I kind of just went set by set and talked about everything that happened around that time for me personally, right? So it's just a personal recollection of how it was for me. But it'll be a lot shorter this time because there wasn't really a lot for me to comment about, right? Whereas the first one was really long and eventful, and there was like a tournament arc and like all this other stuff, and like I managed to like do callbacks. It was very I really liked that video. It was nice and well structured, I think. This one's gonna be a little bit more simpler. So in the previous video we left off in set 14. We were in the middle of the break ride era, which took forever, but it was actually a really nice era because it was nice to see decks slowly get support from time to time, like every month. This deck would come back into relevancy, this other deck would come back into relevancy, so it kind of gave everyone something to kind of look forward to, right? So it was kind of nice, but at the same time, a lot of decks were like dead in the water, and some decks couldn't even like, cooperate with the previous support, so it was kind of annoying. But in any case, the biggest fear after set 14 was what was going to happen in set 15, where they released Immortal Assure Kaiser, which was one of, I guess, our only tier 0 decks, just because it was just that powerful. And it had already been banned, or sort of nerfed, I should say, not banned, nerfed in the JP server. But for global, we weren't sure what was going to happen to us, because for the JP server, it took them a while to actually do the nerf. And actually, Game Studio actually messed up and released, I think for set 14, they accidentally released set 15 stuff the first day at launch. Set 14, or no, not set 14. It might have been before that, but it might have been like 13 or 12. It was a complete mess because they just released a bunch of cards that weren't supposed to be there, and they didn't have effects, but you can still use them in ladder, and they had their effects. So there was like a day where, Immortal Assure Kaiser with Mon were actually out there, right? But essentially what would happen with this deck is that you would use the Blau break ride. You would break ride over with the Immortal Assure Kaiser. Immortal Assure Kaiser says whenever it checks a Samurai or grade 3, you can stand itself and another unit once per turn. And the Mound break ride, the Blau break ride, it says whenever your Vanguard attacks, counterblast 1, restand your entire board, right? Then there were the 2 Samurai cards, which were the cards that were really hurt from this nerf, where they said whenever any other unit stands, this unit gets 3k. So you would just basically have these humongous, ridiculous swings at your opponent, where you can kill them from like 1 or 2. And since it was the break ride era, you can just sit and leave your opponent at 3. So you can like limit break deny them, so they couldn't really do anything. And then once you got limit break, it was just game over for them, right? But thankfully set 15 came out. They, were smart about it. They immediately nerfed it. We didn't get to see Asmond in its full power. Set 15 was kind of whatever. I was still kind of playing with Silverthorns and Blaus, which were my favorite decks at the time, so I was very happy with that. I wanted to try out Jewel Knights because I did have a lot of fun with Jewel Knights before, but I didn't get any of the new Ashley Reverse or Miranda, so I was kind of disappointed at that. But I did get to play around with Sanctuary of Light, which I think won it either got really far or won one of the Zero championships at the time, which was kind of funny because it was this like random rogue deck that I think all its pieces were like double rares for like its main deck and whatnot, so it was kind of cool to see that. Aside from like Gansalot might have been the only triple rare that it had, so it was a fun little deck that I managed to play around with at the time. The biggest thing that happened throughout this time, this was, May 2021. One of the main reasons that I sort of fell on to Vanguard Zero through the pandemic is that I was kind of going through a lot through the pandemic, specifically health related. And it kind of sort of all culminated all at once that April, March, right before Vanguard Zero released. It was a nice little distraction from what was going on, but a year later, things started to get a lot worse, unfortunately. So I was kind of like, during this period, pretty depressed about what was to come. If you don't know, I had chronic kidney disease, which in like just the simplest, most general way possible that I can say that, it just means that my kidneys aren't as good, or were not as good, or are not as good, continue to not be as good as a normal person's kidneys, and they deteriorated way faster than a normal kidney. Whereas like at like 15, no, not so much 15, at like 20 something, I had the kidney of like a 50-year-old or older than that, right? So it got to the point where I was just sort of deteriorating over time, so that was kind of depressing. But I kind of relied on Vanguard Zero to kind of like just distract me and help me get through that. Then June 2021, we got set 16. We got more support for Silverthorn, so I was ecstatic for this. I had a little bit of trouble initially figuring out how to use the new deck and the new support, but eventually I actually figured it out, and I actually managed to climb to 87th in the ladder that month for the first rank season, because it was for Lukier rank reward. So I really wanted to try and get top 100 for that. I'm very happy that I did that. That's the highest that I've ever ranked ever. So that was a really nice experience. It was really interesting because like I was able to get into the like, I don't know, I guess the tryhard mindset where like I optimized my deck as best as I could, and I was sort of like compensating for like everything that I saw out there. So I made sure, like, for example, I would always put back all my grade 3s because I was like, I know I'm gonna eventually draw into them, especially since I'm gonna use the starter to like soul charge stuff. I always end up drawing my grade 3s anyways because I, thin out my deck, etc, etc. And then I always made sure that I also put back everything to make sure I got PGs, because if I didn't have PGs I would die, right? So I just started doing so many specific little like strategies and things beforehand, and I was just going through the game like poop, 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 super fast, climb up really fast. Like I had never been able to play Vanguard Zero that like dedicated and like focused ever, and I still have not been able to really do that again. So it was a really interesting experience, and yeah, managed to make it to 87th. Very nice. It is unfortunate that if you're not in top 10, the game doesn't really give a shit. Because like anything from like less than top 10 up to like I think 1,000 or 100, you get like the same reward anyways. It's just like, fuck me, I guess. But the biggest thing that sort of started hurting me, or depressing me I should say, not too much hurting me, was towards the end of that month. I think they started talking about how strong Silverthorns were and that nerfs were possibly coming. Game Studio was attempting to do something where I think Mariska and Anna, or maybe just Mariska, were going to be Counterblast 2 in order to use their effects. That would have killed the deck beyond belief, right? They would never be able to do anything. Thankfully, there was a lot of uproar from the Japanese community, and Bushiroad Game Studio, I always say one or the other because I really don't know who specifically handles specific aspects of the game, but they reached out to the community and had like a poll and asked them, what would you think are some ways that we could balance this out, which was nice. It's nice that they, one, saw the like feedback that the players had, and two, took in actual direct feedback from them on how to progress from there. So that was probably the best thing that has happened in Vanguard Zero, even though it is to my detriment, and I hate it so much that they actually did nerf these cards, because these are my favorite cards, and I still think right now the nerf is too much and that it is unnecessary. But that is probably the best part, that they actually listened. They listened the first time when there was an issue, and then they listened to the players and see what they wanted to do about the issue, and acted accordingly. So instead of it being Counterblast 2, they just made it a hard once per turn, where you could only use cards, the effect of a card with that name once per turn for both those cards, right? But in general, just knowing that these cards were going to get nerfed after ranking, I stopped just using Silverthorns because I just didn't feel like it was going to feel the same, and I was right. Because I used it a couple of times before the nerf, and I was like, wow, this was amazing. And I used it after the nerf, and I was like, wow, I hate this. And I know that you can still make it work, and it's still an okay deck, but it just feels like, they just feel so neutered. Like, I can tell that the deck can do better, and it just, I don't know. And from here, we go a little bit quickly through everything. Set 16 was the start of the Legion era. We started to get risers, which is really cool. I messed out with risers. That was really, really fun time because I've always loved risers. So I managed to get to use them, and I also never experienced the Legion in the anime because I'd never seen it. So I got to like catch up on that and learn Legion as a mechanic. And I think it, you know, is one of the best mechanics in Zero as a whole. As usual, I was always trying to pull for the Genesis stuff. Did not get that. This set, as usual. But around this time, ranked was kind of annoying because it was just, we were just so tired of Gold Paladins because we had so many good Gold Paladin rank rewards, and they had received so much support in the sort of Link Joker era and so on and so forth, that the fact that they got supported again in the Legion era was just such a pain in the ass that it was like, I don't know, ranked season number 6 or in a row where everyone was just using Liberators because they were good and they gave you out so many of the pieces for relatively for free that why the hell would you not use it, right? So ranked started to get a little bit annoying with them. And that's why nowadays, if you're playing even so much as starting into G, you just never really see Liberators except for like 1 or 2 people sometimes, because everyone's just so sick of them. They got so sick of them during this time that everyone was playing them because it was just the deck, right? It was. We would always talk about how you would go on ladder and you would just play a different variation of Blaster, because it would either be the Liberator version with Blaster Blade Liberator, or you played Revengers with Blaster Blade or whatever the hell his dumbass name is. Blaster Dark Revenger, whatever, him, right? So that ranked was a little bit annoying throughout these times, and I wasn't really playing too much. I was starting to lose a little bit of interest in ranked, and then we were also not really getting as good rank rewards as before. Then September we got set 19, which gave us Legion support for Pale Moon, among other things. The worst set for Pale Moon. These guards were garbage. They nerfed them in advance, right? I think I saw how good Silverthorns were, and they decided to hit the Legion that was never that good to begin with, and then they nerfed it. They eventually buffed it to normal effect, but it was just disappointing. And then Perditions were on the ladder, and they were kind of annoying because they automatically gave you 4 damage. They retired 2 intercepts, pushed you to 5, and then the trigger would not activate, right? Like it would automatically, it's one of those things where you just take the damage. So it was a really kind of annoying deck to face. After we got Heal Guards, now it's not really that big of a deal, right? So you don't really see Perditions on ladder, and you know, stuff like Vanquisher makes them kind of hard to play around with. But initially it was kind of an annoying deck. But it was also around this time that 2 sort of things happened back in May. So set, what was May? Set 15. Around that time we actually got Overdress, which released, which was the new version of the TCG Vanguard. And I had actually started playing that because playing Vanguard Zero, I'd always wanted to play actual physical Vanguard, and I was actually trying to get into V Premium a little bit, but I wasn't really too excited about it, so I was trying to get into Premium, and then I saw that it was kind of difficult in order to get any of the cards that I thought I wanted to play, and I also saw a gajillion the other cards that I didn't know, and I was like, what are these green cards? Why is this one red? What is all this shit, right? So I kind of gave up on that, but then thankfully they announced Overdress, and then I was like, all right, we'll just start fresh with Overdress, and I started playing Overdress. I managed to introduce my girlfriend into Vanguard as well. She started playing along with me, and we had a fuck ton of fun with that, to be honest. And in September we were starting to play it, you know, a lot more even then, because I think that's around the time that we got either set 2, I think it was, because there was like a huge break before we got set 3. So I think around this time we maybe had just gotten it in August or something like that, so we were playing a lot of the TCG Vanguard. But in addition to that, I also started feeling a lot worse, as I had mentioned, from my kidney condition. It got to the point where it was really bad, and my doctors were thinking like, all right, we're gonna have to do something now. Otherwise you're just, you know, gonna go into organ failure or something like that. So very mixed emotions during this time, I'll say that at least. Actually, I think I got it wrong, because I think Perditions came out in set 20, which was the next set in October. I feel like these sets might be off by 1, because like when I look at that, And like I checked in the game, it seems right, but I feel like it was off by a month. But during this time we got Witches for sets 20, and then that's when the whole thing with predictions. I was playing Witches for Genesis, and I had a lot of fun with that. I think we also got Witches for Shadows, but I had a lot of fun with Witches in Genesis. It was a nice little deck that not a lot of people were playing, but I managed to like find a build that I really liked, and it was really consistent for me at least, and it was one of the ways where I was able to get back into ranked. But as I had mentioned before, my kidney condition had started to get worse, so I was just feeling a lot less energy and a lot less motivation to do anything. Just kind of going by through the days, but thankfully my girlfriend ended up being a match for me, and she decided to graciously donate me her kidney. And we were sort of the second half of October just sort of getting ready for everything that was gonna happen for that, because that's a major life change if you haven't already assumed. Then around sometime after that we got set 21, which gave us brawlers, which were really good in ladder as well. It was maybe the next tier 0. It was at least very, very high tier 1. I don't know if it was exactly unbeatable per se, but I did manage to actually play this. I usually don't play super meta decks, but I actually got this and I was like, yeah, this is really good. For the little bit that I got to play for it. But then after that, that's when I went to surgery, and I was out for a good while for a couple of reasons. One, for obviously recovering from the surgery, but I just needed some time to sort of prepare for the next phases in terms of like coming back to like YouTube or Twitch or whatever. And it was kind of difficult to play Vanguard ZERO during this time. I always joked that maybe like while I'm in the hospital or whatever, I could always try and like get the top 100 because I won't have anything else to do, right? But the problem with that was that they had a bunch of IVs in my hand, or not my hand, but like my arms and stuff. And like my hands were like really swollen from all the liquids that they were pumping into me. So in order to be able to like do this with their phone, it was extremely difficult for me. So that's why I couldn't really like tweet a bunch about it, because I wanted to like sort of try and see if I can not feel as lonely and depressed in the hospital room alone by tweeting about it and stuff like that. But I just could not. I literally could not use my hands. It was just very depressing. I brought a bunch of stuff. I had like a laptop I wanted to use and a my Switch and stuff. I couldn't use any of it. I just kind of sat there watching Friends for 3 days straight. December started off with the G era. We thought we were actually going to get it in January, but they skipped the bye month for us, so we got the G era in December. Then that's when I started to feel a little bit better. I got back into streaming, was able to play more Vanguard ZERO. I really liked the G era. It was, you know, the start of it was pretty fun and exciting. A lot of the new changes that they introduced were nice. Mainly like the gameplay changes were really good. And it was around this time where I actually got recruited for the Pro League. So the Pro League, I got recruited actually for Clan Battles, which is another league, but then I started going, while that was sort of getting started and getting settled, we ended up using the same team for Pro League, which is just, you know, teams playing Vanguard ZERO in a sort of like league where you play off against every player in your every team in your bracket, or not bracket, but your group. And then you advance to like a final playoff stage, so similar to like sports and stuff like that. And that's kind of like where the rest of this takes, where it was just kind of like me playing and me doing the thing I'm going to talk about next that happened that following month, and then just me doing Pro League stuff, right? Because then after that, in January, I actually started this channel. Right, we started doing the Vanguard channel. I had a lot of thoughts about this in December. I was thinking like I really want to do more Vanguard stuff because I'm really enjoying Vanguard. Both TCG and, you know, Vanguard ZERO, but I don't really want to do this on my previous channel, and so instead I opened up a brand new channel, and it's thankfully gone really, really well. A lot better than I thought it was. I was thinking like I'll give it 2 months, see what happens. If it flops, it flops. We'll just kind of not worry about it as much, and no, it's been going way better than I thought it would, right? I wasn't really expecting much. I just kind of wanted a place to throw my Vanguard videos and ideas on, and glad I managed to find it here. After that, not too much happened. Set 3, you know, came along. Didn't really care too much for it. I did manage to, you know, fall in love with Victor and use the new Novo Grappler support, and that with like the tower event for Seraph Snow made me really appreciate Novo Grappler, since I kind of disowned Pale Moon at this point, given what had happened with, you know, not being able to play Silverthorns and their new support not being as great. So I was kind of just waiting for the Magia stuff. Then, you know, I did that video for Novo Grapplers in G Set 3, So I got a little bit more into like, I definitely played a lot of ranked and competed in tournaments and a little bit and stuff, but I never really gotten too into the nitty gritty. And then, you know, now with like Victor and stuff, that has gotten a little bit more focused, especially, you know, having a channel about Vanguard, and then also playing in the Pro League, I've gotten a little bit more competitive about Vanguard ZERO, so that's why I was able to do stuff like release that video. Then set 4, I think that was Angels, right? Yeah, that makes us Angel Feather. So I managed to try out play Angel Feather again. And then set 5 is just released, and we finally got the Pale Moon stuff that I've been waiting for, and I've kind of just been messing around with that lately. It took me a really long time to get a build that I like. I ended up losing like a whole day. I lost like 20 times in a row or something like that, just trying out builds and trying to figure out the deck. I just now got a build that I actually like and that I've actually won a couple of games with, but I do feel like there's just so much potential that can be achieved with the deck, and I'm just not able to tap into it right now. And that's it. That's kind of been my second year with Vanguard ZERO. Not as eventful as the first one, unfortunately, but things have sort of, like I said, changed. I was sort of really happy and faithful and whatnot with Vanguard ZERO, but now going into the second year, I've been a little bit more bitter and unhappy, I guess. I did a video on the state of Vanguard ZERO, and I tried to just sort of talk about things. I didn't want to spend a bunch of time just like complaining about stuff, but you know, managed to get a few things off of my chest, and I'm gonna try and maybe not do that here either, but it just feels like the more I go on, the less happy I get. Like I just start realizing things that like make me unhappy about it. And what sort of has caused this shift for me is the fact that they just announced that Dragalia Lost is gonna have its end of service pretty soon, and that kind of like hit me a little bit. Not because I've been playing Dragalia Lost. I tried it a bit and I always wanted to try and get back into it, but obviously I won't be able to. But it just sort of reminds me that it's a mobile game. So very easily tomorrow Vanguard ZERO could just poof, be gone. Like they could just not give a shit and be like, all right, well, whatever, bye, on to the next thing, right? And this is sort of the thought that I had seen looming around when Vanguard ZERO first dropped, where some players, I had seen on Twitter, some players didn't want to invest into it because it's a mobile game, so very easily it could just disappear. And I was like, yeah, I do get that, but I was comparing it to something like Duel Links, which has been around for many years, right? It doesn't seem like it's gonna stop any soon, so I was like, well, maybe that won't be the case, so I'll give it a shot. But now I don't know. There's been a lot of like clamoring, thinking that that might be what happens to Vanguard ZERO, because they've just kind of like, for most people, it feels like they're kind of just like rampaging through a lot of the G era stuff and just trying to get out content as quickly as possible so they can just steal your money as quickly as possible and just dip. In general, the game has obviously been a lot less player friendly, or I guess yes, in general player friendly, but a lot free to play player friendly as well. And it's something that I sort of expressed in the State of Vanguard ZERO video, where it's just like, I'm finding it very hard to like advocate for the game and like try and get new users into the game, because the game makes it very difficult to do that, I feel like, both with like the sort of grinding and stuff players have to do, and also in the lack of support, but also just the fact that some of the older players just don't even want to play sometimes because they just get so sick of that shit. And it's kind of a tale as old as time. It kind of comes with like any mobile game, right? Well, you know, whatever it is, you'll get sick of it eventually. It's nice in the beginning, then afterwards it's just a money grab, and then they'll do one good thing, and then it's like, oh yeah, yes, good times, yay, woo, happy, and then it just goes back to the same old usual nonsense, right? So it's not like this is a new thing, right? But it just puts me in a weird, awkward position because I've started like uploading, so I've been trying to see if I can get, you know, help out new players. After I did that State of Vanguard ZERO video, I thought maybe I can do something to help out new players. So I did like a free-to-play guide for how to get like gems and stuff in the game. Thankfully that video did really well. I'm really happy about that. A little sad about it because like I always kind of poke fun at channels that like when a new game drops or something like that, they feel the need to make easy content by making like tutorial videos and stuff like that, because they figure like, oh yeah, that's what people are searching for. Let me just make some random bullshit video that I didn't put into thought into, and I just want to pull in views and subs into my channel and whatnot. But that obviously wasn't what I was trying to do, especially because it's definitely not a new game, right? It's been out for 2 years now. But yeah, I don't really have any like main consensus or point here. I just kind of wanted to rant for a bit. And like I was pretty disappointed with the first anniversary sort of event that they had. It wasn't really great, but now compared to the second one, it's actually way better. Because this one has just been kind of crummy, just in terms of like it being an anniversary. I don't know if it's just players being asking for a lot. What's the word, like privileged, right? Because we're sort of used to other games where it's like, it's been a year, thanks, here's free shit, right? We're just so used to that instead. Like Duel Links, every time it's like, oh, we've reached 69 downloads in this month, here's 5,000 gems or something like that, right? We're used to more games throwing out more free stuff like that. Vanguard Zero doesn't really give out free anything most of the time, right? In terms of like the base game, getting stuff for free is kind of rough. Then when it comes to event, the stuff they give out is ultra limited, which is really obnoxious, especially since like grinding for stuff, especially in events, is pretty limited. So it's not like I can, for the most part, infinitely grind through an event, because usually it requires me to get stamina or wait some time, or get some sort of other currency which I can't just rapidly get or anything like that. Like I can't just go to an event, play it, and get everything in one day or anything like that, right? Unless I spend an exorbitant amount of money. So I don't know. It's really silly that they just refuse to just give out anything like that, but I often don't know if it's like Game Studio that's doing this or it's Bushiroad. I don't know anything about Game Studio. I hate that there's a game studio called Game Studio, so when I look them up I have to specify company and hope that I get a hit, because otherwise I just get how to start a game studio, the 10 game studios in fucking the bottom of the sea or something like that, right? So I don't know how much of it is just Game Studio being fully in charge of Vanguard Zero and them being shitty. I don't know how much of it is Bushiroad telling Game Studio to be shitty. I don't know how much of it is Bushiroad setting certain expectations and certain give them a certain budget, certain like deadlines, certain like money thresholds is a better way to say it, but certain thresholds that they need to hit, right? So Game Studio has to sort of like figure out something to make up, right, to hit that threshold. I don't know which one of those it is. I don't know the inner workings of this company, right? So I have to kind of commentate on that, but I'm assuming might be the third one, because that's usually how it works out, right? Because I'm pretty sure Bushiroad is bigger than Game Studio, so it's definitely like that kind of a relationship, right? But yeah, it's just every day is something else, right? Like I log in and they'll like show like something, like today they have a new event that's coming out, I think starts like tomorrow, and they've forgot to translate the image of it. And it's just constantly stuff like that, right? Where it's like they just forget to translate stuff and they like make all these random errors, and it's like like I get it, this is free or whatnot, but like for something that you expect people to like invest, presumably, right, your goal is for people to invest money in, can you like maybe try a little harder or something? But I don't know. I think I've rambled on enough with no point. I just kind of wanted to go over my second year again. Again, it wasn't as eventful. I might not do this for the third year. We'll see, unless something actually happens. But, it was nice to be able to join the Pro League, and G-Era has been pretty cool. And I'm hoping things go for the better, but I'm pretty, unfortunately, not expecting much to change at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we only make it to year 3 and then we hit our end of service, because we don't even know what's going to happen at the end of G. Because at the end of G we go into the reboot. We don't know how that's going to be handled yet. We'll find out, I think, December of this year. I think around then we'll have a better understanding, because I think by then on the Japanese side we'll run out of G content, I think. Just roughly guesstimating, right? Might be a little bit sooner than that, but we'll see. Anyways, sorry to be such a downer. Until next time, Take care of yourself.